All right, let's get into the story of Narendra Modi. It is, without a doubt, a remarkable and incredibly complex journey, one that takes us from the most humble beginnings you can imagine, all the way to the very top of Indian politics. This line right here, it just cuts right to the chase. It's the core of a narrative that has absolutely captivated a nation and really the whole world. It's a story that's all about hardship, ambition, and this just unwavering climb to power. So, how does a story like this even start? Well, it doesn't begin in the halls of power or with some political dynasty. No, it starts in a small town in Gujarat, rooted in real profound humility. And when we say hardship, we really mean it. His early life was tough. Imagine this, a tiny 1.5 room house for his parents and all his siblings. Those formative years, you just know they shaped his entire perspective and his drive. You can see his path starts to take shape really early on. From helping his dad at the family tea stall, he joins the RSS, a Hindu nationalist organization, when he's just 8 years old. Then, at 17, he leaves home, travels all over India for 2 years, which must have just broadened his horizons immensely. And that all culminates in 1985 when he officially joins the BJP. All right, so this is where things take a massive dramatic turn. A devastating natural disaster and a huge political shakeup suddenly put him in charge of his entire home state. The year is 2001. A huge earthquake hits Gujarat, and in all that chaos, the political landscape just shifts. Modi gets the call. He's chosen to lead the state right in the middle of a crisis. I mean, talk about being thrown into the deep end. And once he's in charge, he doesn't waste any time. He starts pushing this idea that quickly gets known as the Gujarat model. The focus was laser sharp. Bring in investment, kickstart economic growth, and build this image of a state run by a clean, disciplined, business-friendly government. But here's the thing, and it's a huge but. His time as chief minister is a story of two very different sides. While he was getting all this praise for his economic model, his time in office was also defined by the intense controversy of the 2002 Gujarat riots. And even though he was later cleared by a Supreme Court-appointed team, that criticism has followed him for years. So the reputation he built in Gujarat as both this economic reformer and, a deeply controversial figure, that became the launchpad for a national campaign that would literally reshape Indian politics. And that win in 2014, wow, it was a political earthquake. I mean, for the first time in 30 years, one single party had won an absolute majority in India's parliament. It was a massive signal of change. So once he's prime minister, the scale of everything just explodes. We're not talking about small policy tweaks here. These are huge, ambitious, nationwide programs aimed at changing society from the ground up. Everything from sanitation and clean water to banking for the poor. And then came the big economic shocks. He showed he was not afraid to make these massive, disruptive moves that honestly touched every single person in the country. Things like demonetization, where they pulled huge currency notes out of circulation overnight, and the GST, these were gigantic gambles that sparked just furious debate across the nation. Okay, so as we move forward in his term, his entire vision for where India is headed really starts to crystallize around one single powerful idea. And that idea is Atman Nirbhar Bharat. In English, that's self-reliant India. The thinking is pretty straightforward. If India wants to be a developed global power by 2047, it needs to be able to stand on its own 2 feet. A huge piece of that puzzle is the Make in India campaign. And just look at these goals. They were incredibly ambitious. The idea was to basically turn India into a global factory, boosting growth and creating a staggering 100 million new jobs. And you can see this self-reliance theme isn't just about making phones or cars. It goes way deeper. We're talking defense, building India's own weapons. We're talking technology, aiming for India-made semiconductor chips. We're even talking about space and energy. It's across the board. So, as you can probably imagine, a journey this big, this transformative, it comes with a ton of praise on one side, but also a whole lot of sharp criticism on the other. On the world stage, he polls incredibly well. I mean, look at this number from a Morning Consult survey, a 75% approval rating. That put him right at the very top of the list for democratic leaders worldwide. But back in India, you hear a very different story from his critics. This quote really sums it up. The economy might be growing on paper, but are the jobs and the benefits actually reaching everyone? That's the big question they ask. And this, right here, is the core of the economic debate.
The government side points to reports, like from the World Bank, saying poverty has absolutely plummeted. But critics say, yeah, but look at the gap between the rich and poor, it's getting wider. Two completely different ways of looking at the same economy.
It's fascinating because even his public statements can spark a huge political firestorm. Take this example. From the historic Red Fort, he praises the RSS. His supporters see it as honoring a century of service. The opposition? They call it an insult to the freedom struggle and a violation of India's secular identity. Another defining feature of his leadership has been a really assertive stance on national security. We've seen these bold, decisive actions, like the surgical strikes and the Balakot airstrike, that signaled a much tougher posture. And of course, there was the huge move to revoke Article 370, ending the special status of Jammu and Kashmir. And that assertive approach has definitely gotten the world's attention. Internationally, you hear leaders like former U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley saying it flat out: to counter China's influence, America needs a strong friend and partner like India. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, from that kid helping out at a railway station tea stall to a man who commands the world stage, it is an unbelievable journey, but it's a story that's still being written. And the big question that remains for all of us is, what will that final chapter say? What will his legacy truly be?